What's up, guys? This is Marseille, aka the Property Pastor, coming at you with another video talking about real estate investing. We're bringing brand new videos every week to you guys to add value to you and your business as you grow, whether or not you're pursuing your first property, your first deal, or if you're on your 10th, 12th, or even more so than that. But I want to do a quick video for you guys today about how I bought a duplex for $4,000. Now you might be saying that's insane, that's crazy, but it is actually possible. And basically this video is going to focus on something that we call a lease option purchase. So a few weeks ago I kind of did a walkthrough of that property, kind of showed you the inner workings of one of the units that was vacant at the time. Thankfully it's now been filled. So in a couple of weeks, after acquiring the property, it's actually already filled and cash flowing for it. So I'm going to actually walk through the deal, how we structured it, walk through the numbers today, just to kind of give you a feel for how these things kind of work. But before we get started, I want to remind you guys to make sure you like and subscribe to our page. We are dropping new videos multiple times a week just to give you great new content. So make sure you like and subscribe. Share this video for somebody else who can benefit from it and add value to them as well. And let's go ahead and dig in, guys. So like I said, recently I bought a duplex. I spent $4,000 on this deal. The property itself is valued well over around $90,000, and that was actually before it was renovated. So what a lease option is really just acquiring a property through basically a lease agreement. So if you kind of think about how a sublease works, and then you have the option to buy after that term is up. So we call it control without ownership. So I am taking control of this asset. I'm taking control of the cash flow stream for a very low barrier of entry. So basically, we put about, we put $4,000 down essentially. And the cool part about this is we really didn't have any closing costs either. So we will have some on the end, if we convert the deal on the back end, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the video. So let's take a look here. So what exactly is a lease option purchase? So one of my strategies in COVID-19 is something that, I talked about in a video earlier called CREAM. The C in the CREAM strategy stands for creative financing. So we acquired this property. We took control of it using a creative tactic or creative strategy to acquire real estate called a lease option purchase. So lease options are not new. They've been around for a very long time. A lot of people do them. And there's many ways to do a lease option. You've got the wholesale lease option, where you basically go find someone and you wholesale that deal to another investor. You got the sandwich lease option, where basically you sign a lease agreement, you sublet or whatever, and then you sign an agreement on the back end for a back end buyer. And then the other one that we're actually going to be talking about today is a lease option purchase. So here we are essentially giving ourselves the option to purchase this piece of property after our lease expires, right? So we have gone in and negotiated numbers and whatnot, and essentially we have taken control as a buyer, and we are allowed to control an income stream. So the way that basically works, if you kind of think about the way a sublease works, so basically somebody comes in and they rent from a property owner, and then they go around, they turn around and they then re-rent to another tenant. It's essentially the same thing. This is a little bit different from the standpoint of me as the intermediate party. I have the option to buy this piece of real estate in 5 years, which we most certainly will. But if something happened, we actually don't have to buy it. So we're essentially getting access to this income stream, right? And that's a pretty cool thing. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it today. But like I said, I have the option after the lease expires to buy the property for our predetermined price. The nice part about these things is that I still get the tax benefits of the mortgage interest. So all the mortgage payments that I make, principal and interest and whatnot, as principal goes down, those interest payments, I am going to deduct them from my taxes because I am paying for this particular property. So essentially what we're doing is we've signed this lease agreement. I have gone in and I am now making the mortgage payment, basically taking over the property manager, they work with me and whatnot. So my front end buyer or seller rather, they're totally out of it. So basically, to give you a little bit of details about this property, like I said, it cost us $4,000, and you're probably in your mind like, man, that must be a dump. Well, if you look here, it's a pretty nice looking duplex. Like I mentioned, it had been renovated, so the original buyer was actually an investor friend of mine. So this is not something that we bought off the MLS. This is actually something that we bought through networking and just talking to other investors. So I came across this property because a wholesaler friend of mine came to me and he's like, "Hey, Marcel, I'm in the middle of an eviction. I'm trying to get a tenant out of there, and I'm losing money and I can't really afford to do that right now where I'm at. And I need to offload this property. So I wanted to come to you and kind of give you first dibs on it." And we just kind of talked about it, and I shared with him what I was interested in. He told me about his interest. He really wanted to focus on his wholesaling business. And right now he's like, "Look, I got to get rid of this property." So we worked out, basically a lease purchase. Nice part about it, this was a duplex that basically he took over with a phenomenal interest rate. It was through, I think, a FHA loan. So he got into it for hardly nothing. And in it, right, he actually did a lot of renovations. So the downstairs unit, I think the upstairs unit too, both were renovated. So when he purchased it, it was valued at, I think, about $89,000 or $88,000. But he's put in a lot more work. So now it's a turnkey property. I'm taking it. I didn't have to do anything to it. So basically, it's located in Newport News, here in my area of Virginia. It is a duplex, and like I said, it looks really good. It's got good, nice vinyl siding, central heating and air on both units. Flooring's good, carpet good, appliances good. Pretty much a very, very nice asset to pick up for $4,000. So I want to dig into this thing. So again, how did I find this deal? So like I mentioned earlier, this was not an MLS deal. I didn't have a real estate agent bring it to me. So essentially what happened, I said, networking is key. A wholesaler brought me this deal, another friend of mine. So network. I cannot express that enough. So in the creative finance world, a lot of work is done through relationships, through negotiation, through going to your REIA groups, your local real estate investor association groups, networking with people, your Facebook groups. All of that stuff, those are critical, because what happens is you start talking about what you're doing and people bring you deals, right? Which is nice, because now you're not paying realtor commissions, you're not dealing with all of that kind of stuff, and you can be a lot more creative, right? So, and that's how you can get a house for $4,000. I would never get a $4,000 house through my realtor, right? So again, networking is key. And like I said, it was a fellow investor, and he was a tired landlord. And honestly, I love tired landlords. So, really, that's why I try to network as much as I can. And a lot of deals that I've picked up have been through networking, through either fellow investors. Man, I purchased a duplex from my handyman. I had one of my handymen, he had purchased the property. It was like literally right beside where he lived. He had renovated one half of the unit, and the other half was pretty much gutted down to the studs. So we took over that property. I think we spent like maybe $20,000 and did an owner finance with them with a back end balloon. And what we did was basically did a burr. Right after the burr was all said and done, we cashed out. Long story short, nice pickup through networking. So I say that, let you guys know that, you don't want to do real estate in a vacuum. You want to talk to people. You want to get to know people. You want to tell folks what you're doing. And I think when you do that, more and more deals come your way, more and more opportunities, and more leads. So that's how I found it. It was through networking and through a tired landlord. So like I said, I love tired landlords. I probably picked up maybe 40% of my portfolio from tired landlords, and even using creative financing through things like seller financing. So let's look at the financials of this particular deal. Let's look at the numbers. Today we're going to actually look at the expenses, the income, the cash flow, and the cash on cash return. So first of all, on the expenses side, we're paying about $970 a month, and that's the current mortgage on the property is about $82,000. So once you take out, what the original buyer had their down payment and all that kind of stuff, the current mortgage is sitting around $82,000. So right now, our PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, we're paying about $633 a month, which is a pretty good rate, once you consider the mortgage and taxes and insurance. So now there is some PMI on this because it was a first-time homeowner, but it's not very much money. Property management, we're spending about $138 a month on this property, pretty much 10%. So you'll see in a minute, we're pulling in $1,375. Right now, the utilities are sitting at about $100 a month. There is a combined gas meter here. So in the future, what we're going to do is we're actually going to pass that cost on to our tenant. Now, the challenge is that it is a single unit gas meter, right? So it's not really metered separately. And what we typically do in those kind of situations is we charge a surcharge on top of the rent. So because I'm acquiring this property, everything that I have acquired remains the same until we change it down the road. So right now utilities are about $100. And then for repairs, we have budgeted $100. Like I mentioned, these properties have been recently renovated, so that is a pretty conservative repair number considering the condition of the property. Everything's in really good shape. It's undergone pretty much a full renovation. So we've got $100 repair, and then capex we just threw in $50. Now a lot of times we try to put in about 10% for capex, but remember the state of the property in addition to the rest of the properties in my portfolio and reserves, and then on top of it I've actually added a repair clause into my purchase agreement. So we'll circle to that later, but kind of explain why that capex is a little bit light. But again, we do want to account for capex. There's another vacancy number in there. I think I usually put about 5%. It's just not listed here. But as far as income, right now we're pulling in $1,375 a month from this property. Unit number 1 is renting for $675. Unit number 2 is renting for $700. Now we do believe that these rents can go up probably $25 to $50, but what we would do is raise those rents gradually over time. If you are a landlord, make sure that you are doing rent increases gradually over time, so that you can keep up with inflation and the cost of things additional, because your costs are going to go up. So you must pass those costs on to your tenants. So overall for cash flow, right, we're actually making $279, $280 a month, and then which gives us a cash on cash return of 84%. Not bad. Right? Not bad. I can't make that, in the stock market. So getting a cash on cash return of 84% based on an annual cash flow of about $33.46 and a total cash investment of $4,000. So that means pretty much after the year one, so 13 months in, I have made my initial investment back, and after that it's all positive money. That's not a bad deal, right? So I'll take that any day of the week. So let's look at how did I structure this thing? How did we set this whole creative deal up for this lease option purchase? The first thing, like I said, it is called a lease option purchase. So with it, there is a purchase agreement. So just like you offer, you get a purchase agreement set up and signed when you buy a property, we set up a lease option purchase agreement. Now we've set this term with a master lease for a 5-year master lease. So basically we've got 5 years to go in and essentially buy out our our seller. So, and that's plenty of time, right? So, and even if we had an issue, we would extend it, going forward. Now, the thing is, remember, we are just signing a master lease for 5 years. So technically, we do not own this property. What we own is the income stream, and what we have is the option to purchase. Now, the way that we tie up the property, the way we make sure that the seller doesn't go out and for some reason decide to sell it from underneath our noses, is that we sign what we call a memorandum of option, which is basically recorded down at the county courthouse. What that does is it clouds the title. So if for whatever reason the seller tried to do some shady stuff and tried to sell the property from underneath us, then essentially what would happen is during the title search, this memorandum of option that we have recorded would now pop up and show that it is not a clean title, right? So that's one of the ways that we protect ourselves in this kind of deal, right? So we've spent $4,000, and after the first, 13 months or whatever, all of our money is back, but we want to make sure that we protect ourselves, against any kind of shady dealings, right? So, but that's how you basically did the initial structure. And then we get added to the insurance policy as an additional insurer. So our name is not going to be the policy holder. The seller keeps the policy in place. They have a landlord policy, and they just add us down as an additional insured, right? Additionally, the purchase price, right? The purchase price will be for the remaining principal after 5 years. So every single month that I'm making a payment, my principal is going down. So basically, after 5 years, the sale price, the price of sale will be for the outstanding principal balance. So every single month that I pay, I am getting the benefit of essentially building equity and principal pay down, right? So, which is really nice because what we call it is rent credit. So I'm getting in 5 years, let's say for example, due to the amortization schedule, if it's $73,000, that's what my purchase price will be. So I've got to go to the bank, and then I've got to get the property's got to appraise. Bank will give me 75 to 80% of whatever the appraisal value is. So this is a pretty low risk deal for me, because in it, right, like I mentioned earlier, this property was renovated. Originally it was appraised at 90 grand. It's been renovated, a lot of money been put into it, and now on top of it, I am getting to buy it for its future value in 5 years of outstanding principal. Not a bad way. So again, I paid $4,000 in option fee. Now that is non-refundable. So if for some reason, I decided to move away, leave the deal alone in 5 years, I just give the property back. My lease is now up, right? So I would lose my my option fee, right? That's a non-refundable fee. But remember, after 13 months, I've made my money back. So everything from 13 months beyond to the 5 years is just pure profit for me. So again, it's an option fee. Some people actually try to do it as a deposit. So in other words, if they walk away from the deal, they get their deposit back. I didn't want to strip everything out of this deal for my seller, so I went ahead and made that a non-refundable option fee. I do know him and wanted to maintain a really good relationship, and I wanted to create a win-win. So I made that a non-refundable option fee, but I felt like it was very low risk based on my cash-on-cash return. And then I think I mentioned earlier that I did add in here a repair clause for anything beyond $1,000. So what happens there is I take care of all maintenance, all repairs, but if it goes to be above $1,000, then me and the seller will come back to the table and we will negotiate how we're going to handle that. So it just puts another safeguard in there for me, which is also the reason why I didn't have my CapEx quite as heavy as it was. But the other part of it is the condition of the property. It's got, pretty much new AC units, appliances are new. The property is been upgraded. So, but those are some of the things that we put into the structure of the deal. Now you may be asking yourself, what can go wrong with this deal? Why don't people do this every day? Well, one of the reasons they don't do them every day because people don't really know that much about lease options, and a lot of times they just want to sell it and be done with it. But you got to ask yourself, ask myself, what can go wrong with this kind of deal? The first thing, as I mentioned earlier, is that the seller could try to sell it from underneath me. But as I mentioned, we put the memorandum of option into the, we'll have that recorded so that it will cloud the title. So the first thing that could go wrong is that the seller tries to sell the property. The other thing is that, say, for example, property values tank, right? If the property doesn't appraise in 5 years and values tank, then I'm in a position where I've got to bring more cash to closing in order to pay out my initial seller. So let's say, for example, property values just tank and I can only appraise for 75. Well, I'm only going to get 75% of that 75, which probably won't be enough to cover the current mortgage balance. But in that event, right, the seller and I have already discussed and agreed that he would either carry back a second mortgage. We'll come up with something creative, but at the end of the day, he doesn't want the property back. At this point, he's just like, man, I just want to be done with the property. You take it, get it off my hands. And that's one of the beautiful things about a motivated seller, right? They're just tired of the property. They don't want it anymore. So, but again, if it doesn't appraise in 5 years, for whatever, above 25% above the current mortgage balance, then we'd have to do something creative. We'd have to put a second note on the property, seller carry back for that, renegotiate the price, all that kind of stuff. So the other thing is that I, as the buyer, could stop making payments. So what we did in this instance was basically the seller, right, because we have a relationship, he essentially just said, hey, you just make the payment straight to the mortgage company, right? He can still log in, he can still see things, going on. But if for some reason I stop making payments and they don't realize it, their property could go into foreclosure, right? And me as the tenant, basically, I would have no recourse. I have no recourse in this deal whatsoever. But from the seller's perspective, that could be a true risk. Now, what some people will actually do in this instance is they will set up payment through escrow, right? If the two parties don't really know each other, they'll just deal with an escrow company and they'll say, hey, look, I want the escrow company to collect the payments and then also to disperse the payments to the mortgage company. And then both sides can basically go in and see what's going on. I would not advise, if you ever set one of these deals up, that you pay the seller the mortgage and then expect them to pay the mortgage company, because they may take the money and run too. I think the best thing is either you pay directly to the mortgage company or you set up escrow. So if they're not comfortable giving you their login information or allowing you, to make payments on their behalf to, the lender, then you guys set up escrow. You pay escrow, and then escrow pays the mortgage, and everybody kind of has that middleman. And a lot of those services really aren't very expensive. I think some title companies do them, things like that. They only cost, sometimes they're like $20 a month, so it's not really a lot of money. And the other thing that could technically go wrong is the due on sale clause, and many people get scared to death about due on sale. There's a lot of discussion about due on sale. Whenever you change an insurance policy, whenever a title transfers over. Remember, in this instance, title does not change because I have not purchased a property yet. But what could happen is the due on sale could come, and the seller could essentially try to say there has been a transfer of ownership, right? But in this situation, there's not a risk of that because the title hasn't changed. The only thing we're actually going to change is the insurance setup. We're just going to add me as an additional insurer. So if you do violate due on sale, the lender technically could call the note. But even in that instance, what happens most of the time, they know the note's being paid. They don't really care. There has been no change in things like that. So due on sale is very low risk. But even if you ever have a note to get called, there is no, some people say there's no due on sale jail. There's nothing illegal about due on sale whatsoever. All it is just the option, that a lender puts into every loan agreement. It says that at the transfer of property or ownership, the owner has the may call the note due. Basically, and that's what due on sale is. It doesn't say will, it says may. It gives them that option. So let's look at some keys. Some keys to lease option deals being successful, right? Because I know you're asking, you might be licking your chops right now, like, man, $4,000 for a house? I can't even get a car for that. But some keys to having a successful lease option deal. One of the first things is that seller motivation is key. You cannot do a lease option agreement, or really a lot of creative financing can't really take place without seller motivation. So you've got to have a motivated seller. For me, my seller, like in this instance, they were just tired of the property. They wanted to focus their energy. They were tired of dealing with tenant headaches. They were tired of dealing with, worrying every single month, their portfolio, whether or not it was going to cash flow positive or cash flow negative. They were doing much better in wholesaling. That was really where their skill set is. So, but you got to have a motivated seller, and you got to be able to solve their problem. And it's got to be working out for both sides. So I think seller motivation is key, right? You can't just, and a lot of times you can't go up and just say, hey, are you willing to do a lease option on your house? Most people are going to run from that because they're so skeptical. I think negotiation skills are critical. Being able to build rapport, being able to know people, being able to network, figuring out what is their ultimate motivation versus just saying, hey, I want to buy your house for $4,000. Will you do that? Most of the time that's not really going to work. You've got to have negotiation skills. You got to be able to build rapport. You got to be able to create value from both sides. And there's a ton of information out there about how to successfully motivate. How to successfully negotiate rather than not motivate. But you got to have good negotiation skills. You got to be able to be flexible, be creative, understand their situation, understand their needs, and actually cater the deal to meet those needs. And then the person's got to be open to the concept. Like I mentioned earlier, this is typically done in the off-market space through relationships, sometimes investor to investor, sometimes a family member. It really just depends because everyone is not necessarily always motivated by the money. Some people are motivated by the pain points. Some people are motivated by, I just want to be out of this thing. Can you just fix my problem? Some people will exchange non-monetary things for real estate, right? You may have a car they like. You may have a boat they like, right? You can throw different things in there to actually sweeten the pot. Some things that are not of value to you, but may be of great value to the other person. Say, for example, they got a bunch of stuff in the house and they're like, oh, I gotta move. I'm trying to move into my new place and I need to get rid of this old one. I'm tired of making 2 payments. A lease option is a great deal in those scenarios, right? So, but the person has to be open to the concept. So I think building a relationship, being patient, right? Not just depending on numbers, right? Because numbers are a part of real estate, but people are a huge part. They're if not a bigger part of the deal than the numbers themselves. And like I mentioned earlier, it's typically done in off-market situations. So like I said, you can go to a real estate agent. I'm not saying you can't, but it typically takes, they have to be motivated and the agent's got to be able to get something out of the deal as well. So again, these kind of deals are often done in the off-market space and are often done, through creative means. So that's kind of in a nutshell how the deal was set up. Like I mentioned, 84% cash on cash return. Typically I like deals that are 500 plus in terms of monthly cash flow. But if I am going to make such a small investment and get such a reward on the back end, That's the reason that I did this deal. So it was pretty low risk, pretty much a no-brainer, and we were able to work out something for me and my seller. So hey guys, this is just wanted to kind of share with this concept with you. Wanted to break down the my latest deal that we put together. I'm excited about it. We've got it fully leased up, and we got tenants in place, and we're cash flowing, so in a very short amount of time. So I am excited about it. If you have any questions about anything covered, you got comments, make sure you drop them in the comment section. You can send me a message. I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, Facebook, all those kind of places. But I'm here to answer your questions, here to add value to you. Thanks for checking out today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with somebody who can benefit from it. Until the next time, God bless you. I appreciate you tuning in today. Love you guys. Praying for you and your family. Stay safe out there. Until the next video. That's been me, Marseille, the property pastor. Love you guys, and talk to you again soon.